Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Bradford series. Bradford is a hugely important city in West Yorkshire. A lot of it is unparished, but there are 20 of them here, so let's dive into one of them today. Welcome back to Bradford, everybody, for round two. Now, last week we saw Harden, and now we've come over the water, over the bridge, to the next parish to the south. And this is the much bigger Wilsden. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Parish number 2 in Bradford is Wilsden, located 6 miles west of Bradford, close to the Aire Valley and the nearby villages of Denholme, Cullingworth, Harden, Cottingley and Allerton. The village occupies the high ground to the west of the Aire Valley and is surrounded by upland pastures, enclosed areas, wooded valleys and gritstone moorland. During the Roman era, the land Wilsden occupies was part of the Kingdom of Elmet. Wilsden is an Old English name and was originally recorded as Wealhas-den, or Place of the Welsh. Maps from the 1800s show a very different Wilsden to the one we know today. Wilsden was originally a collection of smaller settlements, which have now combined to form one. These hamlets would eventually become conjoined during industrialisation in the area, which led to the building of textile mills, and some of them still stand to this day. In total there were 8, the first of which, Albion Mill, was built in 1810. A further 7 followed in the same century. Albion Mill would eventually be demolished after it suffered a serious fire in 1990. The mills may have ceased production, but Wilsden remains quite active. It has many businesses such as Wilsden Autos, a sweet centre, a co-op and a post office. It was a nice walk this, even if it was uphill. Let's go. We begin our journey through Wilsden by driving from its border with Harden at the Malt Shovel, where we ended last week's episode. The main road that runs north to south through the village connects at its southern end with the B6144 road towards Cullingworth and Bradford. At its northern end, it goes through Harden to connect with the B6429 towards Bingley. This northern section is a very linear affair. Wilsden grew initially as a farming community, looking very different from its present shape. Housing was not focused along a closely built-up main road. Instead, it consisted of separate clusters of farms at Hewenden, Hallis Bridge, Mythome, Wilsden Hill, Nor, Wilsden Lee, and Ling Bob. Its layout changed as the population changed rapidly in the 1800s, and so too did its shape. Before long, the small hamlets were amalgamated into one. After parking on Smithy Lane, our first landmark is one of the village's many old mills. This is by no means the largest or most impressive though. Heading uphill, we find a church. That would be Wilsden Trinity, a United Reformed church, located on the end of Chapel Row. Not far away from this is another church, St Matthew's, which was originally built in 1826 in a different location in the village. In fact, St Matthew's is considered unusual, having occupied 4 sites within 150 years. This is the present building, and it opened in 1975. Next, we have the former Wilsden Mechanics Institute. This dates from 1837. Historic England tells us this had a library of 4,000 volumes with a lecture room and a museum. I then dived down Tweedy Street to catch Wilsden Primary School. So far everything's been uphill. It's a valley, so what do you expect? The good thing about it is, of course, it'll be downhill on the way back, so it's always best to go uphill first, get it out of the way, and then it's plain sailing all the way down, isn't it? I've reached the post office, which is here, which is right next to the New Inn, one of Wilsden's pubs. At this point, Main Street starts to become a little less residential and much more commercial. The 616 and 619 services stop here, connecting Wilsden to Bradford and Keighley. Here's a local butcher's, who had some nice looking sausage rolls. Of course, with a growing population throughout the 1800s, amenities sprang up here, as did houses. Necessities could be obtained without leaving the village. Here we have a house with a blue plaque. Carrie Pickles, a bronze medal gymnast in the 1928 Olympics, was born here in 1904. Wilsden's most famous son is the astrophysicist Alfred Fowler, who was born at Moss Row, or close by, in 1868. It's Crack Lane next, unsuitable for HGVs. This runs to Lingfield Road, where there's a large wildflower garden. Okay, so that's brought us to a little garden back on Main Street. Now, we'll be heading south that way. There is a part of Main Street I haven't yet covered, which is this bit, but that's all in hand because later on I'll be coming out here somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, and heading up this bit. It's all part of my plan. Now, this little garden is, it's quite something. There are 2 benches here. There's a planter as well with some nice flowers in, and a bin obviously, so you can sit here and have a little picnic or whatever. Now, these benches are quite notable because, as you can see from this sign, it's Tappy Bench. Now, this is written in proper Yorkshire dialect. Now, I might be a Lincolnshire boy, but I've lived in Yorkshire for long enough, so I'm going to have a go at reading this for you. Park this end down if thou don't mind somebody parking this end down and saying "Hey up." If thou wants a copy at Yorkshire Tappy Bench sign for t'other site, then drop an email to thehappybenchproject@gmail.com. Post your picture on interweb like Kite Book of the Sen on Tappy Bench using hashtag thehappybench, hashtag spread a little sunshine, hashtag spread love. Don't forget to put where thou hails from. Let's give some love out to the world, folks. Nobody has to be by this end. I like that. It's very difficult to know what Yorkshire dialect actually says sometimes, but I think I managed to get most of that right, hopefully. Otherwise, I've just made an absolute fool of myself. Right, let's carry on. So next we cross a stream. Trust me, it's down there somewhere, and we're about to enter the Ling Bob area of Wilsden. There's more mills here. Here's a fine example. Wilsden's earliest mills depended on water power. Some of the village's more prosperous farmers were able to diversify into home-based aspects of the textile business, converting barns into warehouses and eventually building mills. Of course, now some are used in other ways. This one, for example, is an antique centre. Next to it, we have Laurel Bank Care Home, which can accommodate as many as 63 residents. Where Main Street meets Laneside, we find another tall chimney. That's Ling Bob Mill, which in 2007 was converted into residential use. Also bearing the Ling Bob name is this pub, which was built in 1836. Originally, this was known as the Brown Cow Inn, but locals always knew it as the Ling Bob. Okay, we've reached the most southerly point of today's route. This is Laneside. We're outside the Ling Bob, right here. And we'll walk down here for a short distance before turning right and heading back down the hill towards where we started. Next, we head to the west, down Laneside, which again is primarily residential. If you head the other way, you'll find yourself at Wilsden Cricket Club. There's not much to say about this area, but it's varied. On one side of the road, you have typical Yorkshire terraces and modern housing, and on the other side, there's some pretty good views over the local landscape. That track you can see, by the way, leads to Wilsden Equestrian Centre. Now we come to a cemetery. This is in fact a former churchyard because this is where the original St Matthew's Church once stood. There's a larger cemetery to the east of the village. At the top of the track adjoining the cemetery, we find ourselves on Wellington Road, which will connect to Wellington Street and Main Street once again. Okay, so this is a residential area, so there's not a great deal to talk about here, but I tell you what, there is a magnificent view from here. Hills in the distance over there, and over there as well. It's marvellous. Off Wellington Road is the village surgery and adjoining pharmacy. This works in partnership with a sister practice in neighbouring Cullingworth. Wellington Road is linked via a small opening to Wellington Street off Main Street. That's where we find the Wilsden Conservative Club, this building right here. The next street to the north is Peel Street, and that's the Villager, a typical Yorkshire local and family-friendly pub which offers live entertainment nights. All that remains of Main Street now would be the War Memorial, an old school, and a couple more shops, including this chippy, and I can tell you that this smelt good. The old school in question is the Wilsden Independent Sunday School, which dates from 1890. In front of this is the War Memorial. The men of the village who died in both World Wars are listed on this, a total of 69, 46 from World War I and 23 from World War II. How about this for a bush shelter? Not seen anything like this before. Wouldn't you agree? Great carving at the back here. Fantastic. To get back to the start, we take a walk through the park. This is Wilsden Park, situated just off Main Street in the Townfield area of the village. The park is pretty basic. It has a playground, a multi-use games area, and plenty of open green spaces with benches. It's a nice spot. The Friends of Wilsden Park, who manage it, hold events here such as an annual Easter egg hunt on Easter Sunday. It also has a notable tree. This is the tree in question. It was planted as a memorial to John Hanson, a founder member of the Wilsden Village Society. The park also features the village hall. Wilsden Squash Club are based here, as are the Scouts. A weekly auction takes place here too. And our last act on the main walk is to put a card on the parish notice board, which I thought I was never going to find. It's on the side of the post office. Well, that was a good little walk around that. I'm now heading down the hill, which I tell you is much better than walking up it. Back to where I parked the car. And yeah, that's Wilsden. That's Wilsden. We're not quite finished because there's something else I want to show you, and I'll take you there in a moment. I'm just enjoying this amble down the hill. There's some good views this way, to be honest. You can see in the distance the hill that I walked up in the Harden episode last week. You can see how tall it is. It's not exactly shallow. So yeah, you definitely know you're on the hills here in this part of the world. So yeah, that's Wilsden anyway. That's a nice little building. I didn't see that when I walked up the hill. I wonder what that is. There's a plaque above its door. Well, plaque, a stone. There's a stone above its door. Let's see if we can get close to it. Didn't notice this on the way up the hill. It says infant school, but I can't read what's above it. So one second, we'll just cross the road. Ah, National Infant School, AD 1838. I know why I missed this on the walk up. It's because I was on this side of the road, and of course I wasn't looking up at that point. But yeah, there's something else for you for Wilsden. For today's special section, we're going to talk a bit about Hannah Green, known to many Wilsden locals as the Ling Bob Witch. A supposed fortune teller and practitioner of the dark arts, Hannah Green lived in a house on the site of the current Ling Bob pub's car park. Her cottage had a tall chimney stack, painted white so that her clients knew where to find her. Her clients would get a glimpse of their future by the reading of tea leaves. By all accounts, she was pretty good at what she did. At the time of her death in 1810, Green had saved as much as £1,000, and this was the late 1700s and early 1800s, a time when £1 a week was considered a good wage. Green eventually moved away to Yeadon in Leeds. It was there where she died on May the 12th, 1810. Her daughter Hannah Spence tried to continue the family business, but without much success. As well as Wilsden, the parish boundaries cover the small village of Harecroft, which is out to the west. Although small, Harecroft holds a major landmark. That would be an old railway line and the site of Wilsden Station, and there's a reference to these in Harecroft in the form of the Station Hotel. That can be seen on the right here, just before I make the turn to the left to head down towards the site of the station and towards the path of the line. Neither exist today as they originally did, but the line has been turned into the Great Northern Railway Trail, a popular walking and cycle route. The line was the Queensbury to Keighley line and ran to the west of Wilsden. These buildings here stand close to the site of the station. These are station cottages. According to this board, Wilsden Station opened in 1886 and was closed down in May of 1955 to passengers and in November 1963 to goods. You can still see where it was. It was in this cutting close to the road bridge. Just yards away from the station is the 300-yard-long Wealhas-den viaduct. Formed of 17 arches, Wealhas-den viaduct is one of the tallest of its kind in Britain. It was built in 1880, parallel to the neighbouring Leesmore Tunnel. The railway formed a through route that directly links several major textile towns together. It often gets nicknamed the Alpine Railway due to its surroundings. Okay, I'm standing on Wealhas-den viaduct, and as I'm speaking there's a bit of an echo because of the sides of the viaduct. There's a cracking view both ways. This is the view to the east. That's Harecroft in the distance. And then to the west, it's similar. Check this out, you've got the reservoir. How about that? Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I've got a few cycling friends who would love to be on this, I think, riding the bikes along here. I'd like to ride my bike along here. What a fantastic piece of architecture. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the Wilsden episode. And yeah, totally enjoyed that, thoroughly enjoyed it. 2 down in Bradford and 18 to go, and a brilliant place to end it here on Wealhas-den viaduct. It's quite wide, isn't it? Look how wide it is. You can see how wide it is. There's someone walking down the middle at the moment. You see how much space is to her left and to her right. I imagine though it would have been quite wide because, you know, railway lines are quite wide things, aren't they? Anyway, I'm rambling on. I think I'm just enjoying myself a little bit too much here today. Okay. Anyway, like I said, 2 down in Bradford and 18 to go. This has been the parish of Wilsden, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.